16?
16.
16.
Yeah.
And we actually have a topic today.
We do.
We
came prepared.
Yeah, well, we've been wanting to talk about this for a long time, but it didn't feel right because we didn't finish it. So it's a book. It's about a book
A book.
called Letting Go by David Hawkins. It has Elliot, little flashy cover right here. And we read a lot of books. I read a lot of books.
I've also read a lot of books.
No, not like, I'm not saying it as some sort of self-pompous.
No, I've read more.
No, what I'm saying is on the journey of spiritual,
Yes,
or at least trying to understand what the heck is happening.
That's what I meant to.
Yeah,
so I've read a lot of
maybe that we should clarify that
spiritual and or self-help books.
Yeah, not because that's a checkbox. Like, oh look, I'm the type of person who reads the books.
No,
I'm not saying that for that reason.
When I say it, I mean it in that, and most of them didn't help very much.
Well, I mean, I got something out of each one of them, but I wouldn't say nothing was as revolutionary as this particular one.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so I figured, I don't think we'll be doing an episode on any book, not even my book. Maybe we should do an episode on my book. Self pimp myself.
Yeah, right.
But this one is probably worth a read.
I agree. There are a handful of books that I've read that I would get Elliot's stamp of approval. Worth a read.
Does my book get a stamp of approval?
It gets the stamp of approval, yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. I say mine, But I mean,
Eckhart Tolle's book. I like that one too. The Power of Now.
Yes, good book.
I like Michael Singer's book.
I haven't read that one, but
you read one.
You
haven't
I didn't read that one.
Oh,
no, you only read one, right?
I only read one.
The one with the horse on the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that called? Untethered.
Untethered.
No, wait.
Unbridled. Untethered.
No.
Here it is.
Yeah. No, so I haven't read that one, but I figure I should.
I like that one too.
And Michael Singer has that meditation retreat that we just drove by in Florida.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we drove by it. And it's not anything fancy.
Did you see it?
There was only one thing starred in Florida when we were driving through Florida, and I'm like, what is this thing starred? And it's right off the interstate.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
And wait, not Michael Singer. Somebody who I read. The Michael Singer? Or somebody who we read
I thought you read that book.
Oh, maybe I did read this book. Did I read the book? I know you talked to me about it, and we talked a lot during our cacao sessions. Anyway, that's not the book we're talking about right now. But maybe if I do read the book or remember reading the book, we can talk about that book as well.
There have been books that I've started and maybe made it halfway through, maybe even read the whole thing, and I don't remember reading it, and I read it again.
And you read it again, and then you get something out of it?
And then I'm like, oh, I kind of remember some of this, but yeah. There have been books like that.
I mean, I read my book at least 7-8 times now.
Yeah. I mean,
in the
editing process.
Was a year and a half that it's been published?
Yeah.
It was a year and a half. And I cannot remember any of it.
Yeah.
And I wrote it.
Yeah.
I remember like the gists. Like there's the metaphorical stories that they inserted about like the bee and the flower, and then there's the present of life, the girl. Those are the two stories. I think that might be the two stories that they have in there. And I remember my narrative, like the narrative that I have in the beginning of transitioning into the channeling process, just because that's me.
Do you remember the chakra chapter?
Oh my gosh. I remember.
Everyone has a part of their project that they're like, and the part of it is like,
Well, no, it is what it was. An introduction was supposed to come from me, right?
Yeah.
Like the chakra introduction of the human interpretation of it, that was supposed to come from me. But that sucked. But then very quickly just went into the channeled. It was like what they wanted the chakra summary to be, but it was more of like human interpretation. So I wonder if the reason why I think that section of my book sucks is because there was humanoid interpretation of something as a rudimentary thing, and then I thought that was the right way to do it. I still think it's right the way to do it. Like I did not have permission to change the book.
Yeah. I
And
remember
yeah, a
because
lot of people.
I really wanted to change the book, at least, grammatically and things like that.
Yeah, and I think most of the people who channel the book out, well, one, I think a lot of people go through an editor,
Yeah,
and
and
then
an
the
editor's going to be
editor,
very, very adamant about
yeah, like I think you almost
adhering to
lose control with an
adhering to
editor.
certain
Yeah,
traditions, language traditions.
yeah, and with me, I'm a foreign speaker writing a book in English, so I'm sure that comes through. Not because it is Russian inserted in there, just because of the mere nature. Two, it is no way how I speak.
Right. That was what was interesting is that it has this almost biblical type of I don't know if vibe's the right word.
Phrasing,
Phrasing.
phrasing,
It's
yeah,
it's written very however the Bible's written, it's written like that.
yeah.
And a lot of channeled stuff all has that same type of it's not normal speech.
No, no. And when I write now, when I channel now, I can like almost sense the pattern. And it's been a while since I channeled that book. Was it 2 years since I channeled that book? But there's a wave that comes through it. Like the way they write is a waveform. I say wave thinking of a notion, but no, if it's an energetic waveform. So there's this a folding effect, a toroidal fold on itself. You know how the wave folds on itself? But then it's still an energetic propagation, but it's in these like swooping wave-like notions. That is what the book is. Yeah, and so the book has this wave formatting.
Yeah, no, I can feel that.
And so now when I write, because I know that is the way they propagate information, it's like it's easier for me to accept it. It's easier for me to receive it in this waveform. And I almost
Yeah.
feel myself like going like this whenever I channel. Not like a rocking in the ocean, but not energetically. Energetically, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how I can tell that the chapters end, like the waveform kind of slows and then it starts back up.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But anyway, um so the letting go.
Letting go.
Oh, she is here.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Hi.
Then we don't need to talk about the book. Let's just talk about me and the preciousness that I am. Daddy, what is this? This is not appropriate. There's a hole in your lap. The purring will be in
The
the video.
purring might be
I
audible.
won't be able to edit the purring. Daddy, I also like this microphone. And your buttons. Should you get a blanket
Let's
in
go
your lap?
see. Let's just go see. Deeper. Eye leakies. I know. Who has eye leakies?
I wonder if we should continue giving her medicine for it or not. I mean, because that's just for sniffles, right? Eye leakies would be. I think sometimes whenever they have their eye infection
Mm-hmm.
and it's not remedied in a certain amount of time, they just continue to have it.
Maybe.
Remember, our other cat, Ozzy, had it. Like his eyes would always leak and we had to clean them. I don't know. Maybe somebody listening can suggest something. We don't have a solution for that yet. So whenever I get my books, they usually come in some sort of
Interesting way.
interesting way, I guess. And not all, but a lot of times I'm trying to intuitive the next book. And in this case, I finished the book, and I think I was giving it an instruction not to read for a long time. So I spend, which is not like me at all. Like me not reading is really difficult.
Yeah.
Like usually that is how I pass time, is just reading. And so there for a while, I think it was like at least 3 months, if not 6 months, I wasn't reading. And I'm trying to remember if that was the book. No, I wasn't reading. And then I got permission to read. I was like, got super excited. And then I started the Yogananda's book. And that was a bike book.
That's a thick book.
Yeah, I don't know how thick it is because I read it on a Kindle on my phone.
Digitally thick.
Digitally thick. And so it took me a long, long time. And then afterwards, I was done and I'm like, okay, I'm ready for something. I need something, right? And I remember energetically, we were plowing through our pain body releasing stuff, like just hard and heavy in it. I think it was really a difficult time that we were going through. And we do a meditation by what's his name?
Fuji?
Harish
Oh,
something. But I think that is his, maybe not his real name, but that is what he goes by. He's on Gaia a lot,
Yeah.
but he has his own teachings too.
link in the show notes.
Yeah. And we do a meditation, and he basically kind of just walks through the process of just letting your emotions flow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I just thought that was, what's the bee's knees or what?
Yeah, the bee's knees.
The bee's knees. I don't know what the bee's knees actually means, but
there's 6 of them. Those bees have 6 knees.
Oh, why is that? Why is that expression important?
I have no idea.
How does it even derive?
Right.
Okay. So there's that. There's bee's knees, and so
it rhymes, so it must be good.
And I just think, oh my gosh, this is great. And then next thing I know, I do my channeled recordings, and I'm whenever I make the cover, well, the recording is channeled, obviously, and that's the short ones, not us talking on the podcast, but like the short 10 or 20-minute things that I record and I post on Saturdays. And I did channeled recordings, and I'm editing the video, and then I'm being drawn to have one of them in this cover of a like a Buddhist monk. Like, I'm being drawn to this image, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be the cover for one of my videos. Maybe later we'll flash it right here. And so I don't think anything of it, and I think it's called, that video is called Devotion, or I don't remember what that video is called, but it's a Buddhist monk type of a cover. And so then we sit down to watch a show on Gaia. And there's a cover on Gaia that's being suggested that is very similar to this cover that I just did for my channeled book, right? So this is how kind of like synchronicities guide you.
Right.
Maybe this is the story of synchronicities guide you to begin with. And I'm like, oh wait, I was just guided into that image, and I connected with that image, and I did that as my cover. And look, here's this cover. And I think the show is called Quantum.
I remember what show it was.
Hi.
Is that the way to get it up?
Quantum Effects, maybe that's what it's called. But you will flash it here. And the show is about, who's even the guy who's show by. He's very spiritually advanced.
Right. I remember him.
No, we're not going to be on the same chair. We can't be on the same chair.
I know the kitty cats aren't too fond of each other yet. I say yet. I'm not sure Jay will ever be fond of anybody.
What's his? I don't remember his name either. Anyway, so there's that. We don't remember that either. And then in his show, he talks about all these abstract quantum effects that are, in fact, our conscious, like expansion of consciousness, but from a very higher plane view, right? And then in this show, he mentions the author, David Hawkins, and
flashes the book.
And flashes this book. He flashes 2 books because David Hawkins has 2 books that are very powerful. It was like, is the power of love his or not, or is it somebody else?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, so he flashes this book, and then I get guided into reading the Letting Go one, which is the second book, and it's just perfect. It's just absolutely perfect.
It is a great book. It is one of the few life-changing books.
Yeah. And like everything that the book says I was already trying to practice, but it kind of like
It just solidifies it.
solidifies it, or maybe puts a very simple spin on it.
Yeah. No, it's extremely simple. You could boil it down to like 5 pages if you really wanted to.
Yes. Yes. And it lines up perfectly with what Harish was saying in that meditation that we did.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is literally it. And this all happens within like a week span of time between me finding Harish suggestion, me channeling the video, making the cover, seeing the cover on the show on Gaia, listening to Gaia, and then me getting this book. So it's just, the spirit will guide you in the most beautiful way. I say spirit, but whatever. And
so the book is about basically letting go. It's a well-titled book. And letting go is like letting go of negative things, negative emotions that you've been holding on to, whether consciously or unconsciously in your life. The process is simple. You may not be easy, but it is simple. You sit there and you let some negative emotion come up. You might be angry about something. You might be upset or afraid or jealous or whatever. And any of these negative emotions, and you let it and you feel it. You feel it. You don't even necessarily think about it.
yeah, you just
In
allow
fact,
it to
don't
be
think
you.
about it, because thinking about it is going to put labels on it and put words on it and assign judgments and everything to it. You feel it, and you don't judge yourself for feeling it. You're like, oh, it's. I know I've done this. It's a very easy tendency to, I'm angry at Bob over there, but then I'm like, oh, well, I feel guilty about being angry because I shouldn't be angry or something. So then there's these layers on top of it. So there's the anger over whatever Bob did, and then there's the guilt on top of that, and maybe there's this shame. There's all these, they all pile on, and you just
But the anger sometimes is not even Bob related anger. It's like, oh, Bob did something that reminded me of something else that
Yeah.
somebody else did.
yeah.
And so that anger is multi-layered.
Oh yeah, it gets deep.
Mhm.
And anger is usually just a response to fear. If you're angry that Bob stole your cup, I don't know. I'm holding
Especially if I could count it.
right. I'd be angry.
Yeah, me too.
But the anger is is really a response to fear of losing things or fear of not having something, probably. Anyway, you sit there and you let it come up. You don't think about it, but you feel it, and through feeling it,
But don't think about it. You
don't judge it.
logic
Don't
it.
logic it out.
Yeah.
Don't go, well, it's okay because no, there's none of that. This is an emotional process, not a logical process.
Mhm.
As it comes up, it will run its course. It will come up and expire. Later in the book, he says, let it come up, feel it, and then think of something else. Then consciously direct your attention to something positive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was in the Q&A at the end, which is what I just read like last night.
Okay.
And they're like, why? Isn't that the same thing as suppressing it? And they're like, no, it's suppressing, or maybe it was repressing. I forget.
Suppressing.
I think it was repressing. I don't know. There's a difference, and I forget.
Oh, I don't know repressing.
But that's an unconscious behavior, and this is, no, you're letting it come up. You're teaching your body that it's okay to feel these things. That's kind of the overarching theme is it is okay for these things to feel these things. Don't fight them.
Mhm.
As humans, we have this tendency to fight these negative emotions. We don't want to feel these negative emotions, and so we bottle them up and we suppress them and we repress them and we contain them. But all that does is just keep them bottled up. They're
Mhm.
never allowed to escape. You never let them go, and so you end up as a 40-something-year-old person like me with a lifetime's worth of negative emotions all inside
Mhm.
that are still there. It's not like, oh, Billy took my bike back when I was 10 years old, and I'm still, it's not like you aren't necessarily consciously aware of that, but it is still inside, which I 100% agree with.
Stuck.
It's stuck. It's the stuck energy. And as you start letting go of, the surface emotions that are obvious, that are very, front of mind, conscious to you, that either, or maybe both, makes room for the more buried ones to come up, or they lead into each other in the same way that Bob stealing my cup reminds me of, or is the same energetic signature of Billy stealing my bike.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up with the signature of, oh, here's all the things that have been stolen from me over my life, and here's all the anger I have to them, and maybe maybe there's some pattern, and the pattern could just be one person, and it could be oh, well, Bob stole it, and Bob happens to be whatever ethnicity Bob is, so I don't like those people anymore, or Bob's a man and Bob did this, so I don't like men anymore, or I don't like women, or this is how all kinds of racism and things get started too.
Yeah, we tend to take our pain, and then because it hurts so much, we like boil it down to the lowest factor of
and then project it back out to some easy target.
Yeah, but it's like, to the lowest common denominator. Like, oh, why am I angry at this person? And it's not because this particular individual being did this to me. It's like, oh, guess what? All of the people of this sort.
You group them together into
Yeah. He talks about in the book, to begin with, in his previous book, he spends most of the time talking about this chart of energetic flow, and he assigns a numerical scale of vibratory frequency to each type of emotion, right?
Yeah, and we can show that chart too.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. So he has this chart in the negative and then the positive, and in the middle is the
acceptance.
Is that what it is? What's in the middle? I wanted to look it up. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the bottom ones. So the lowest vibration is shame, and then so I'm going up in that scale. Then guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, and so, which he calls the survival emotions, right? And then right after pride is the flip into what he says is basically kind of like empowerment, where you start to be more empowered. And it goes into courage, neutrality.
That was it.
But the courage is 200. He said at 200, you're no longer in a negative vibratory state, and you actually kind of reach some sort of positive baseline. And so when you reach the courage, then you go into neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, and then after reason, you go into the spiritual paradigm emotions, which is what he calls, and it's love, joy, peace, and then the highest one is enlightenment. Now, this is his scale. I don't think anybody used to disagree with that, but emotionally wise, we can all know how to feel most of those.
Yeah, and I certainly know how all those bottom ones feel.
Yeah,
and maybe some of the ones above that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as you do this process, and start releasing the lower emotions.
Yeah. The ones below 200.
Yeah, it makes room for the higher ones. The higher ones are in you already. They're in everybody already. But you're basically holding back. You're basically holding back your own potential by holding on to these negative things.
Yeah. And in the previous podcast, and then you and I have had discussions since then, the way I see it is, you are at the point of your pure essence, let's say that vibrational frequency of enlightenment, that is you, right? And he says that he puts it at between a 700 and 1,000 range, right? and whatever's at the bottom of that name first was 20, right? So this is a scale of 1,000. He said, I don't know if he said this, but I know, through my general knowledge and channeling, that you are at your enlightenment state at all times on the higher vibratory frequency of you. But most of the time we cognitively basically
Dip
layer
down.
up ourselves.
Yeah.
And then the word that I have been given recently is static. We static ourselves away from being able to recognize that frequency of 700 to 1,000. And then depending on where you are on your scale of self, you're anywhere between 0 and then, obviously not 700 if you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm on one hand, it's kind of obvious. Well, nobody wants to feel guilt and shame and anger and fear and all those things,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we do, and we even hold on to them. You'll hold on to that anger at Bob for stealing your cup, because you get something out of it, and it's like, what do you get out of that? Well, you get this like satisfaction of like, well, I'm angry at him, and I have this moral high ground. You get something out of it, something intangible, and at some point he said that the reason we hang on to most of these negative things is because we have this illusion that by hanging on to it, it will somehow change something, affect the other person, maybe cause them to change. Which of course is baloney, right? I can have all the anger I want toward somebody, and that's not doing anything to them. It's only doing bad stuff to me.
Yeah. No, I disagree with that though. I don't think that's the only reason we do it. Maybe that's
no, I don't think he said it's the only reason. I think he said that's one of the big
one of
ones.
the reasons. You can relate to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could never relate to that. I don't think me holding on to stuff was ever because of someone else, and it was like a moral high ground, or me trying to. With me, it was always pain body. Like I might be angry at them, but what I'm not recognizing is the wounded child within me that is actually hurt about being taken advantage of, or being unseen, or being.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It was
it might be the same thing. I don't know.
You mean what? Maybe it's recognizing it from a
different
point deeper.
Yeah.
A deeper standpoint. So I always recognize, this is not about them. And I sometimes I even recognize that, like, currently I was holding on to something just yesterday that I'm like, oh, I'm just having a hard time getting over this. But we have it was just an interaction for work that I
Right.
that I had to deal with. And I was like, I'm just, and Elliot like snarkily point out that like, oh, I still fuming over that one.
Go of that one.
Yeah. I saw that snark. And I'm like, but I see it. I see myself.
I meant that in a flirty way.
No, it was not flirty. It was a total shot. Anytime you can take a shot on me and by not letting go of something, you're like, finally, I have something on her.
There may be some truth to
that. No, I know how you play. And so yeah, no, but I saw that. I'm like, I'm just really having a hard time. I never said that to you. I'm like, I really, I acknowledged it.
Yeah. No.
But it was just rubbing the wrong way. And I'm trying to think. Last night I had a dream. And I had a dream about, it was two dreams, but they were both back-to-back flip sides of them. And in the first dream, I'm doing something for someone, or I'm with someone, and I recognize that the conversation that I am able to have with them is very shallow, right? Like I am not able to have an honest conversation. And you and I have been watching the True Detectives, and in there they touch on, one, not talking about it, suppression, right? And then two, I see it as like, and I think we oh my God. You see that? Yeah, it's just the cutest. Um, and the conversation just being shallow, right? And then I thought, what is the point of speaking with someone? This isn't my dream. If I cannot have a conversation with them, and two, if it's not honest, right? And so that was a recognition that I had there, right? And then the second portion of the dreams, or which is the second dream, was about you, and then you did something. I was angry at you, and then somebody else was trying to do something, and I didn't want to do it, but I recognized that I was walking in this three-dimensional plane full of static, which is the word that, like, usually I have a word that, like, gets thrown at me and I'm stuck with it for like a month, and everything that kind of relates to that word. And so the word of the last week or so, or maybe two, is static. And I recognize, oh, the world is perceived through that lens. I perceive the world through that lens. There's the 700 to 1,000 range frequency in David Hawkins's explanation about enlightenment, right? The sense of enlightenment. And if everything else is static, then it would be very easy to identify the static.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Am I relaying what they were trying to say?
I think so. The way I look at it is that sometimes I'll have some negative emotion that I'm having a lot of trouble getting rid of, letting go of. And then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I am just stuck down here in what we can call the 3D." I
Mhm.
just realize, "Oh my gosh, I'm just swimming down here." And it's because, it's because I've chosen to be down here.
Yeah, it's a choice.
It's a
Everything's a
choice.
choice.
And, was it a deliberate, purposeful choice? Maybe not. Maybe it was just a default choice because it's easier, or, you know, you get something out of I recognize that I do get something out of it. There's some satisfaction in holding these negative emotions. I can totally see that in myself. Um, but then it's like, once I realize that, once I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just stuck down here, that's when I can go, but I can rise above it, and I can, look at it, and then it becomes funny. It becomes, I literally laugh because it's like, look at how silly I've
What
been.
I guess I don't understand, what is the satisfaction?
Um, I don't know. It's like you get to play the victim sometimes. You get to play the victim, or you get to, like, well, at least I'm not like that, or well, there's
Is there
some
satisfaction in victimhood?
um in a twisted way there can be in a
Like, "Oh, woe's me? Like, woe's
yeah,
me,
I mean,
poor
you
me?"
get to feel sorry for yourself. Maybe you get to try to get some sympathy from others. Maybe I mean, it can be manipulative, but I know that I totally see it, and I know I've done it. He lists off all kinds of things in the book about how you can get satisfaction out of the anger. You can, in as much as you can use anger to fuel you, to, you know make a positive change, or to fuel you to do something negative.
Yeah. No, I know, no, yeah, so the book lists out all kinds of reasons of why we do this,
Yeah,
but I just couldn't relate to the, and maybe I'm not understanding with that within myself. Maybe I do have it and I just don't understand it. Like, that I do have it. Like, it's still not transparent to me.
yeah,
But to me it is always, I guess I don't really receive much satisfaction in self-pity or other people's pity. To me it's appalling, like the opposite. Right? Like, the fact that if somebody feels sorry for me based on my style of upbringing, that makes me nauseous. And so it's like the opposite of,
is that his own pain body?
maybe its own pain body of, like, right, like, and no, you don't get to feel sorry for me. So yeah,
Yeah,
maybe there's anger in the fact that I'm in the position where someone could feel sorry for me.
yeah.
Do
I
you know
don't
what I
know.
mean?
No, I get that. I'm trying to think of a, but like, if somebody wronged you, I know I have, almost like, well, felt all, high and mighty and holier than thou and, moral high ground and stuff. And to what end? None, apparently.
Yeah. No.
But that's the thing, is that it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't cause any action in the world. All it does is, give yourself,
Ulcers.
ulcers and high blood pressure. It doesn't, there's no good that comes from this.
No.
But we maintain this illusion that it does. That if I stay angry at them and I don't forgive them and I, whatever,
I'm better than them.
Yeah, you get some satisfaction that, well, I'm better than them. And there may be this illusion that in holding this, they will change, they will be punished, I will continue to feel morally superior, or whatever. There's any number of ways it could go.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could see I'm better than them, I guess. Yeah. I can see how people would
so
feel
there
that.
would be some satisfaction feeling better about yourself because, well, I didn't steal the cup. I'm not the type of person who does that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I can relate to that, but I see that. With me, it goes to, like in the particular case of the thing that I had a hard time letting go of yesterday. It goes into the pain body of, I mean, I recognize it as a pain body, right? But it goes into the pain body of all the times in the past where somebody was just vicious or disrespectful or just straight out unapologetically rude. And I basically bent over and took one for the team, right? That's a crude term there. But that's I feel like my corporate career has basically been that, right? I had bosses literally say, "Oh, put on your hooker boots and go stand on the side of the road and go sell shit," right? so
verbatim.
Yeah. I mean, I think he used different words, but that it was that. It was the hooker boots were the boots was used, the hooker part wasn't in there. Stand on the side of whatever and go sell. That was, yeah. Like, what is that terrible movie that tried to epitomize the worstness of the sales team? I felt like my corporate world was that
Glengarry
Glenn Ross, right? When Alec Baldwin was like yelling at his,
Yeah.
I didn't see the whole movie, but I saw that part, and I was thinking, oh, that is my experience in the corporate world, and so that attitude from the corporate world was the reflection of my general state, just taking one, right? Always taking one. And so now that I have a sense of self-respect and sense of self-worth,
you revolt against that.
By revolt, I go, I don't have to subject myself to this type of behavior. Like, this is not something that one is kind or polite. I would never do this, but not from the moral high standpoint. This is just not kind, right? And so then what I do onto that is, then I go, well, what would the essence of me do? What right? I did not do this for 40 years, but what would I want to do right now?
Yeah.
And it's basically just to separate myself from it, right? And because I'm not separating myself from it, right? But there's this balance, right? Like, I used to separate, to me, used to be run.
Yeah.
Right? I used to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, how much is it running or how much is it just stepping away? And I'm still trying to judge the two, right? So in your case, for the most part, you would go, oh, this is just an interaction. Maybe it's not the nicest interaction, but what's the big deal? Just continue to talk to this human being, right? And to me, it's like, oh, fuck no.
Right.
Cut all communication, cut
at the first sign of it going south.
Well, the first sign was the sign. It was a threat, right?
Yeah.
The first interaction with this human being was a threat.
In this particular one, it was a threat.
It was a threat.
And that's like,
I don't operate well on
it's
threats.
like, okay, well, the relationship's over if there's a threat.
Yeah. And so to me, a relationship over means I'm cutting ties, right? And so any kind of interaction post that that like if I meet you and the first thing you do is threaten me, that this is just not an amicable relationship. I can right, like
Right.
I will not ever get past this. And so it's not that I'm not forgiving this human being, but this is the relationship that this human being
Yeah.
wants to have with me, and I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, no, if someone starts out, super adversarial like that, it kind of shows you how they either want the relationship to go or expect the relationship to go.
Yeah.
And not to defend this person, but who knows?
Oh no, I'm not taking it
Is it
personally, but that
were they
was
having a bad day? Is this is it cold and calculating and this is what we do? This is what I've done that has gotten results, or I
yeah,
feel threatened in my job, so I need to come off strong and powerful
it's
and
that.
threatening
It's that.
in
Yeah.
order to either make myself feel or appear a certain way.
Powerful. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's that. And I know it's that, right? Like I can see that that is where it's coming from. I can read the
right.
person. But
But at the same time, right,
yeah, but regardless of why you're doing this,
right,
right? I almost see like there's this choice into what I assimilate myself with, and then thus the frequency thereof. And I know this is like inserting the spirituality into it. I'm like, but that behavior, right? There's twofold to it. Like I can see, I'm like, okay, this person is obviously hurt, and they're obviously damaged, and they feel disempowered, and this is their way of trying to feel power, and they feel like they're going to lose their job unless they perform a certain way, but they don't actually know what they're doing, so they're
right,
kind of trying to like threat me into
right,
telling them what is it they could do in order to make themselves seem better. Like I have had people do this to me all the
right.
time.
Make me look good, and I'll make you look good.
Yeah, it's basically that,
Right,
right? Except in this case, it's not saying out loud. I have had people say this to me out loud, but in this case, instead of saying this out loud, they doing it through a threat. Like,
right,
oh, if you don't tell me exactly how you do this and how you're so successful at it, I'm pulling all of my money off of you, right?
right.
So, so yes, I see. I'm compassionate towards that situation, but
But at the same time, you don't. You're not in a position where you have to be feeling the brunt of that all the time. You can choose. Well, this is not something I want to continue doing.
yeah, right. And so part of me was evaluating, okay, well, how much of it is financially based? How much
Right,
am I tied to the income that I'm receiving from this person? And I went, okay, it's not about the money, right? It comes down to my own self disrespect.
right,
And that's the pain body that is hitting me. Me continue to socialize or have this person as my client under the established base of a relationship of them trying to have this power over me. So it's not a power fight, but that is what it is to them. And I'm like, I don't want to have a power fight. I'm not threatened, and I don't care about
right,
the monthly income that comes out of this.
right. It's like, yeah,
And so to me,
which I understand is a very privileged thing to do, to be able to say, well, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to walk away because I can, because it's not going to break the bank if I do.
yeah, no, and I would still
More
like to,
money is better than less money,
yeah,
but
I would still like to continue to have that client,
right,
but at the same time, it's like, and and then like my adult standpoint also goes, okay, well, this is this particular person in this company who's obviously struggling, but the client behind it is actually a good client. So I'm just this happens to be this interaction with this person that is what my new forefront for this client
yeah,
is.
right,
So I'm like, so right. And so I don't know, like part of me struggles with like, well, do I suck it up and take it? But I'm like, but that's a wrong attitude because there's
right,
nothing to suck up here. Am I taking it too personally? And I think yes, that
right.
there's part of that where
Where,
I'm just taking it too personally.
where's the balance? Is it like half asleep?
I think it's half asleep and it's trying to make it
It's
somewhere.
all disheveled. The way it walks is so funny.
I think it's gonna go on the mat to lay down to.
It's probably cool on the mat.
Oh, maybe it's just gone potty.
It laid down.
Oh yeah, it overheats and then it has to go to find like a cooler spot.
It has so much fuzz.
It's so adorable, right? So wait, what was I saying?
Take it personally.
Yeah, taking it
Yeah,
personally.
but I mean, I
I
don't
have
know. I don't know where I think everybody has their own balance somewhere between just taking it and 100%, screw you, walk away, and somewhere between or inclusive of here and here is everybody's own thing. But I don't know. I don't know where the right thing is for you. I don't even know where the right thing is for me.
Yeah. No, but you and I have struggled with this all the time, right?
Yeah.
And you have always been on the, I will bend over and take it backwards
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And I have been that way to some degree, out of naiveness half the time, honestly. But then out of fear too, right? And so after I left the corporate world, I started to change that mindset of like, well, heck no, I'm not, right? And so that was the disagreement that you and I kept on having about the type of clients that we would take on is sooner or later I stopped that mental self-abuse, I guess. And I said, okay, no, I'm sorry. I have self-respect and here's where my boundary is.
Yeah.
And with you, the boundary was further.
Yeah.
And so there for a while, I stopped taking on clients that would be disrespectful to me. And then you continue to do so. And so we had this range of clients where like, okay, here's Tanya's clients and they're a certain type. Yeah. And then here's Elliot and they're all
Yeah. What's interesting is that the more respectful a client is of us and our services and our products and our abilities, the more that happens to be worth. The more money that the client.
Well, yeah, obviously.
In general, there are probably exceptions, but so just taking it, you're not going to get as much from that client than if it's a client who actually respects you and you respect them, and it's a mutually respectful relationship.
Yeah. Well, no, and the other part is if I'm taking on the client and I'm taking on the client, then the outcome that they're going to get from me whenever I do my output of what they're paying me for is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
But if I'm taking on a client and like right now, right, this relation, I'm noticing my own self-decency go down to where I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do the bare minimum you pay me for, and I'm not going to go above and beyond anything at this point. Right.
Right.
And I'm noticing, I mean, and I feel like that's like a closed, hard concept that I don't like to function in our corporate world.
Right.
Like you and I, we like what we do for the most part. And if we get treated right and we get paid.
Yeah, but think about the energy you bring to the interaction with someone who you like and you respect and respects you. Yeah. And they value your time and your skills, and they want to pay you for that because they know they're going to get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah.
Versus someone who's just, bargain basement shopping and just wants, you're a commodity to them and you're no different from them or them or them. And yeah. I mean, you're gonna be resentful of this relationship.
Yeah.
You just would.
Yeah.
And you're gonna cherish this relationship.
Yeah. In the past, I would never even take those relationships on. Do you know what I mean? Like I could see myself not diving into it. And in this case, the reason why it's different is because this is an existing clients that we have had for the last decade.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're bought out by someone else. And so then now the company managing them is that type of client that I wouldn't take on.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so now,
or at least the one person that you happen to deal with.
One person I'm dealing with.
It's a giant company, so who even?
Yeah.
Right?
So that I'm right. My general approach to business would be no. If it is not this open heart, trust flow, amicable. You respect me, I respect you. I do my best, and you pay me for the work. Then I wouldn't have that client. Right. But in this case, like it's going that direction, and I'm like, okay, well, this is the end of a relationship,
right? And it
has ended already.
I guess the best you can do, the best that one can do, is don't just take it, but be firm and set boundaries and stuff. And
but from the letting go standpoint, right? From that close hard concept, right?
No,
as far as my vibratory frequency of 1,000 to 20, I'm not even above 200.
Yeah.
Like I notice myself deep dunk down, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's this greater understanding as when you actively choose to participate in actions that are associated with that lower vibratory frequency, that propagate anger and fear and whatever. One, there's the due diligence on your end to just let go, right? And I have been letting go and letting go and letting go. Maybe unsuccessfully in this case, I don't know. But then two, there's this broken relationship, right?
Yeah.
And then the question is, am I responsible for repairing it, right? And then trying to somehow put it back together? Or do I walk away?
Right. I mean, realistically, we both know where this is going in the near
Yeah,
term
no, it will
future.
go away.
It will go away.
Right. No, but in general, what is the responsibility of self if the situation that you're in is not positive, it is not vibrating
Right.
both positive from one end to the other?
Imagine, someone who's got a coworker or a boss
Yeah.
that is disrespectful, or they're just someone that you don't like for whatever reason. Let's say they're disrespectful or something. You can't necessarily pick your coworkers or your boss.
Yeah. So in that
It's,
case, the only
boss
thing
is
you can
even worse
do.
because they have some sort of authority or power over you, and
Yeah.
they can say you're fired, and it's you're at some position in the corporate structure, and there's 8 people above you. Any one of them can say you're fired.
Yeah. But in this case, the best you can do, in my case, right? I keep on letting go and letting go and letting go. But I notice it still hits that deep, wounded disrespect trauma that is possibly deeper than, obviously it's deeper than this one particular instance. But it's that being disrespected is still there.
Yeah.
So in that case, right, I'm having a hard time raising above and then processing out and letting go of this emotion of like what it means to be disrespected, right? But then on the greater whole, besides that, I believe that if something is not aligned with me, that it just needs to go away.
Right. It's like you don't want to. They're just things you don't want in your life because they're not aligned with you. That's a great way to word it.
Yeah, and in this case, this is no longer aligned.
Yeah.
So regardless of how much I will let go and or not let go of it or process it, on the general, I think I almost feel like there needs to be due diligence on my end to actively evaluate, as hard as it might be, what I choose to stay engaged with and vibratory on itself, where it fits on that scale, right? If this whole situation is just so far below the neutrality, period, and there's nothing I can do, that there's almost like this, not due diligence, but like responsibility on my end to remove that from the world.
Or at least from your world.
Well, but if I remove that from my world, it will be removed from the world. Right? I am responsible for propagation of that frequency. And if I'm having a hard time managing my own frequency and not take this frequency and not add on to that frequency, I'm propagating this experience for the world. This world is experiencing more of this vibratory frequency because I'm not separating myself on it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, the right thing to do would be to, on my end, grow up, learn to let go of it, and then start inserting the frequency of love into it, right? And actually change the situation from that. But if I'm struggling and having a hard time doing it, there's responsibility there.
Yeah. I don't think this is the case with this your particular example here, but one of the Q&As at the end of the book, I was like, I've been really trying to let go of this one particular issue and I just can't, and the response was, maybe it's just a karmic cycle that that is in your life,
Bigger than
this one incident. Maybe this is look, is this a recurring theme that comes over and over and over and over?
Well, for me, it is.
Right.
It is that feeling of disrespect. Right. The clients who will come, who I feel disrespectful with, I will not take on, right? Because deep down I have this open wound regarding disrespect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's that to process in general. Like, what does it mean for me to be disrespected? But in the long run, it's like not having a self-worth.
Yeah.
But then how much do I overcompensate and swing the pendulum the other
That's the
direction?
thing, is that with so many things, I know I do this, is that, for so, imagine this is a scale, right? For so for so many years, you've been disrespected, let's say. And so in order to land back at balance, my tendency is to do this, is to completely overcompensate.
Yeah.
Aim for 200. If I'm down here at 0, I'm going to aim for 200 in order to maybe land at 100.
You're just learning.
Yeah.
You're learning the
Yeah,
balance.
maybe,
Yeah, you're learning the balance.
But I know I do that.
Yeah, no, with me, I'm trying to be cognitively aware of that. Like, okay, well, this strikes of like, okay, I just think this is a broken relationship and I'm not approaching it right. I could rise above it, right? And then just allow it to be what it is. Because
Yeah.
I think,
I mean, you're still perfect. I've read your emails. They're still perfectly polite and everything. There's no,
oh no, I will never be
you don't
rude
even have
about
an
it.
undertone in there like this other person does.
Yeah, no, I'm not playing that same game, but I don't want to be subject to
Yeah. No, I
negativity.
completely understand.
Right?
I've had those clients too, like you just said.
Yeah, and they're
And
just
it's
broken people. So there's
right.
compassion there that I have for them, right? And I can send them love. But in the long run, like I also can just choose to step away.
Yeah.
Right.
When I had him, there was yes, I didn't have the self-respect that I should have had. And I was, yeah, I was at a place in my life where I would trade self-respect for money.
Yeah, out of fear.
Yeah.
It's just a fear-based thing.
Yeah.
Right. And in this case, with me, like the self-respect, because the money is related to this. So I was thinking, oh, how much of it is this money? And I'm
Right.
like, okay, maybe to begin with it was money. But now that it's not money, it comes down to like me harping on myself about not respecting myself. And it's like, well, I feel like there's responsibility within me to respect myself.
Yeah. Do you feel guilty about not respecting yourself?
Yeah, there's just
Right.
guilt.
And there's that layer on top of it.
Yeah,
right?
there's a layer on top of guilt. Like, wait, this is the right thing to do. I feel like this is the right thing to do. And I'm not doing it. Why am I not doing it?
Right. And it's like, I mean, with those clients that I had, it's like if I had boundaries and, had the self-respect, it may have even gone better
Yeah.
financially. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think it will go however it needs to go. And I think this will fizz itself out and take care of itself however it needs to fizz. But yeah, there's that struggle. In the book, he also says that I think he says this, but remind me if he doesn't, that a lot of times the reason why we don't want to allow those emotions to flow and thus have them held in inside is because we are afraid that we're gonna drown in them, like it's gonna overtake us, and we're
Yeah, I
gonna
think it
lose
says
ourselves in it.
something like that. I mean, they're painful. I mean, negative
Yeah.
emotions are negative definitionally. So
Yeah.
yeah, humans just don't want to feel that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel that. But, the whole thesis of the book is, well, you can either feel it and be done with it, feel it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a few days, if it needs to be, and be done with it. Or you can feel it subconsciously inside forever and never be done with it.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, well, obviously letting go is the right way to approach this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, you've got a thorn in you or something, or you got to, you can a splinter, you can pick it out and be done with it. And yeah, it hurts to get it out, but then you're done with it.
Yeah.
Or you can leave it in and it'll get infected and all that stuff. Is the I guess it's one of those things where, the intensity of the discomfort will be higher if you have to deal with it and let it go, but the duration will be so much shorter that the area under that curve is so much smaller than it is to just let it go for the rest of your life. Or to not let it go further and let it continue to be there for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. But he said, to begin with, whenever you read the book, there's kind of like almost a twofold process. So to begin with, as you get familiarized with the process, you will start letting go of deeper, inherent stuck emotions, like stuck anger, stuck fear, stuck grief, right? And you will, in general, as you sit there with them, and I have a meditation, maybe you can flash it here, that I recorded this maybe prior to actually starting to read this book, but I was guided into it that basically takes you through the release process of the three of those that I just mentioned. Um, and so as you start to let go of the inherent stuck emotions from, let's say in our case, 40 years back, that's kind of like process one, right? But two, as new things come up in everyday life, right? Like as we, or as I just go, and I had this happen yesterday, right? Also apply that same letting go technique to anything new.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a dual fold process of going back, taking time, maybe through meditation or through personal retrospect, to go back and start letting go of the old stuff. But also, as you walk every day in the 3D today, also be in that open space. And I almost feel that the other book that I started reading that I don't think I will finish. Um,
Maybe don't show it.
Yeah, maybe don't show it. But maybe this is helpful. They said that, like, maybe I should read it. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. There's this idea of holding on to something in your hand and then letting go. And energetically, you can think about it as like holding on to something, like feel that tightness of just holding on to an object, right? But in this case, it's an emotion. Imagine that you're holding on to this emotion. And then letting go, and imagine just how that body feels like whenever you let go. And I have been using that unbeknownst to self, even though I just read this in this book, that internal feeling in my body, right? If something comes my way in everyday 3D that strikes me, I notice the tightness. I notice that same closed fist feeling all through my body. And I go, oh, here's the thing I'm going to hold on to unless I actively acknowledge it.
Oh, nice.
And then go, okay, let's relax into it. And then I relax into it, and then I cognitively go, oh yeah, and this is what the Harish said. There's a mantra. I shouldn't use the word mantra, but I take it as a mantra. But it says, I'm willing to feel everything I need to feel. I'm willing to know everything I need to know, and I'm willing to see everything I need to see. And through those three declarations of self, you open your body up to this stuck energy, this emotion that you would be suppressing otherwise, to just let it come through. Without analyzation, without thoughts, without processing, without logicaling out, you simply go, I'm willing to feel whatever it is I need to feel. And I notice my body just kind of relax in that same way when you open a fist and you let something go. Something just falls off. And I have a hard time in my logical mindset not to start to process what is it that is coming up, and then like where it sits and where it feels, and I almost have to actively like just go, okay,
Not
just
think about it.
not think about it. But at the same time, if something does come up, because a lot of times they said something, you will go down this rabbit hole, and this will come up, and that will come up, and so there will be these flashes from your past that will be stirred. But allow those to happen, and not necessarily try to logic them out or push them away, but simply go, oh, look, here's this, but I'm willing to feel it, and here's that, and I'm willing to feel it. And then you're just willing to feel it. And and your mind will go down the rabbit hole, and that's perfectly normal, but it's still different than logicking it out.
Yeah.
You're just seeing where the mind is taking you and where this is hitting.
When you talked about, being all the difference between holding on to something and then relaxing, we do several meditations where at the end, when, you're about to, at the end of meditations, yoga, at the end of most yoga, the last thing you do is as shavasana, where you just sort of lay there, corpse pose. And several practitioners will say, okay, well, right before we do that, tighten up every muscle in your body and then let it all go. And the difference, when you do it in the practice, it's like, well, the difference between being super tense and tight and having everything clenched and then complete relaxation is such a pronounced difference. But in everyday life, I try to consciously go, wait a minute, what am I clenching up right now? Am I clenching up my jaw? My jaw is
Yeah, my jaw.
one that I've always done a lot. My tongue too. I
Yeah.
haven't my tongue pushed somewhere. Um, uh, sometimes like my what are these, hamstrings and
Gluteus maximus.
butt muscles will be clenched up, and I try to periodically go, wait, what am I clenching up now? Can I relax it?
Hmm.
And it's like, as the day goes on and you just get tenser and tenser and tenser, you don't notice. It's not like the difference between, relaxed to tight back to relaxed. It just builds and builds and builds on itself, and you don't even realize how tight you are.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm laying in bed at night and I'm like, okay, relax. And it's like, I can go deeper. I can go deeper. I can go deeper. And it's like, oh, there's just these different levels of relaxing the physical muscles in the body
Hmm.
that you think you're relaxed, but no, you're still kind of like holding your neck, or you're still kind of like, I
Yeah.
don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you read the tantric sex book, do you remember like we started talking about it? Like, okay, well, step one is relax.
Yeah.
And then while we were having sex, we started to analyze everything that we did
Yeah.
not have relaxed.
There's a lot of clenching. And it's
No, like
like almost, yeah,
most of the muscles in the body were somehow in some sort of form of tightening
right. And it's like it's difficult to not have parts of your body tight.
during sex.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really difficult.
it's really difficult, especially if you're going to move,
Yeah, yeah. But that tightness, I think that just represents
right? And
life.
and the same thing with the breath. I'll notice that I'm either breathing shallow or I'm holding my breath.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Sex kind of highlights it all.
yeah,
Yeah, and we're never taught how to have sex properly, I think.
no.
So like to begin with, you almost like you almost fall into the idea. I don't know how this happens, but you fall into this idea of tension, right? Like,
Right.
oh, how does something happen? How does an orgasm happen? Through tension.
Right.
Right now we get completely off subject. But maybe we should just have an episode on sex. Right. But the idea behind sex has always been prior to reading, you are so sleepy and cranky. Okay, back. It's like it's so sleepy. It's like sleepwalking, basically. But the idea has always been in the past with me to. It's like my idea of an orgasm was associated with, okay, after you spend so much time, basically clenching your lower extremities for so long, and then the clenching and clenching and clenching sooner or later basically leads to unclenching, which is an orgasm, right? Which is like, that is a fucked up way to look at things. And I have no idea where that came from.
Right.
But through maybe initial occupational processes of how an orgasm works, that is what I have derived. And so when we started talking about tantric sex, right, I was like, why, this is completely opposite.
Right. It's
like quite literally the
it's
opposite of what I have been
right.
doing.
It takes some mental effort to wait. I'm clenching. Stop. Wait. I'm clenching. Stop.
Yeah. Yeah. To begin
Wait.
with,
I can't even. I will fall over if I'm not clenching. I have to exert some sort of muscles in order to not fall over.
yeah. Wait. Oh, yeah.
I guess it depends on
On the position.
the position, but
Yeah. No, with me, the sex that we have now is more relaxed.
relax.
And so like the orgasm that is coming or that is initiated from sex is I'm not saying 100%, sometimes it's not. But but for the most part it's very relaxed, and it's a different orgasm.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, in my career, 20 plus years of wrong type of orgasms.
Right.
And it's difficult to say wrong type of orgasms, right? But it's almost like, wow, I wish I read that book or knew
Yeah.
about this earlier.
Right. But I mean that what you just did is the human tendency to put some judgment on it. Wrong type of orgasm. I mean, you corrected yourself, but yeah,
No, by wrong, it's like there's this knowledge you wish you had earlier.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And that's what this is. It's
I'm the
just
same
like
way.
I'm not saying it didn't work for me. Obviously, I have 2 kids, so that process still worked. But right, but like the knowledge of it, I wish I read that book or
Yeah.
learned about that concept.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, my grandma had a Kama Sutra book laying in her bedroom, and I didn't necessarily like. It was just there, and it was the drawings were like the character Indian type of like drawings of sex positions and that, and I don't remember actually going through them or anything like that. But the idea, I guess, behind tantric sex is the I think that like the joy of experience more so than the chase of an orgasm. I think that's
Yeah.
if you
There's
look
a,
at the whole thing.
I mean, there's the letting go of any sort of expectation for what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
being okay with whatever. And I guess
It becomes a shared experience instead of a chase after a goal.
yeah. Right. Which is
Right.
the letting go process is
Right.
this part of it.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm going to completely change topic. So,
No, the sex was never the topic.
okay.
Somehow I just went into that.
Above and beyond letting go of these negative emotions, one of the emotions or feelings or whatever is desire, which is rooted in these attachments to things or people or outcomes, which is another thing that, can be let go of. And that's can be difficult to let go of desire for things or people or outcomes.
Well, I think to begin with, before you start awareness, you don't understand the difference between desire and and just being
Yeah.
or chasing.
Yeah. I mean, in as much as that all these desires are attachments,
Yeah.
Buddhist style attachments, not
Yeah.
psychological style attachments. But yeah, those can really, hold you back, but keep you stuck somewhere. In the
Yeah.
same way that the negative, the anger or the guilt or whatever can keep you stuck somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think with him on his scale, they're all below the 200 vibratory frequency. And so
Yeah.
his thought process is basically allowing things to flow, acknowledging what is it that you have flowing within you.
And the obvious objection there is, well, if I let go of my desire, I'm not going to get what I want.
Yeah.
And the response is, no, by letting go of the desire, you allow yourself to receive what you truly want,
Mhm.
which may or may not be the thing that you think you want. I want $1 million. I gotta get it.
Yeah. But that tension.
Is it by letting go of that craving for the sack of cash? You can open yourself up to receive from the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It might be $1 million. It might be 10 million. It might be whatever that money was. Is it really about the money, or is it about what the money can do? Is it about the money being able to buy time or shelter or food or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the money about being able to buy a fancy car so that you can show off to the neighbors? So is it follow that down? Then it's really about pride in that example. You don't want the money. The money is a tool in order to get pride. Build your own
Esteem.
self-esteem. Sure, right. And self-esteem through that sort of external show-offiness is an artificial
Mhm.
self-esteem.
Yeah. Well, money is never actually about money. I can think what it comes down to is actually never about money.
Yeah, right.
Right?
I mean,
Because right, if you're in fear of like rudimentary survival of like just having food, it's not about money. What if just food came to your door?
right,
Has nothing to do with money.
right.
What if
Shelter
like
is taken care of.
shelter is taken care of? That's not about money, right? So money is just like this outside concept that we marry things into.
Right.
Maybe we should just have an episode on money, like how falsely we attribute everything to it.
Hmm.
Right. And in my case, like, money is tied to safety.
Yeah.
I recognize that too, that there's this idea that it's somehow got to keep me safe.
No, I mean, I can relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think feeling it, allowing yourself to feel it is first acknowledging that you are feeling it. And then two, allowing yourself to feel it, meaning like not suppress it. Because, right, like, all I remember, like, the second something pops into my head or I get triggered and it's just, I feel like it's too much and I'm going to drown it. Like, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Then I'll go, okay, no, make it go away, make it go away. Not like even consciously, but like subconsciously, and you just suppress it. And so the book is basically like, no, just allow it to be you. Like, admit that this is what I am feeling right
Yeah.
now.
Don't judge yourself over it.
Yeah, don't judge it. Yeah.
It's
There's
super
there
easy for
should
me
be
to.
no guilt.
It's
Like,
super easy for me to fall into some sort of anger spiral or whatever spiral.
self-anger.
Yeah, sure, self or external,
Yeah.
and then there's a guilt spiral going along with it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I feel bad that I feel this way.
Yeah.
No, you're a human. People get angry. People get jealous. People get frustrated. People get whatever.
Yeah.
People then feel guilty about that. That is part of being a human.
Yeah. As long as we can continue to live in this world and participate in 3D, unless we are out there
In the cave.
glowing, in a cave or like glowing like a Buddha to the point where, that field is impenetrable by the outside world. We will just continue to experience this influx of these emotions, and we will. The way I see it is, I don't know if he says it or not. We will always kind of be on this wavelength of up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
But when you head down, basically the only thing you need to do is become aware of, look, I am vibrating these emotions. Let me allow them to flow, so then I could come back up.
I mean, basically, that's what I try to do is make it a daily practice of notice when these things come up, and either let go of them then if I can, or kind of keep a tally, and then at night or in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, like in his book, he says like, oh, sometimes you can just sit with something for 45 seconds and it will go away.
Yeah, I've had a lot that are super easy to.
Yeah, but I had a lot that, like, it was like 2 or 3 minutes and I can still feel like, okay, yeah, I know it's not completely gone. But in that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to move on from this, realizing that it will still be re-triggered.
Yeah.
But so I almost feel like there's multi sessions of her approach. Like, yeah, I can see how this is a tendency that I have and this is a trigger that I have. I'm going to let go of this particular instance of it and I do my best trying to dig as much as I can. Just by dig, I mean like allow it to come up deeper and deeper, but still feel like there's some residue and it's okay if it doesn't come out right now.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong. You can choose to do it. You can choose to not do it and not feel guilty either way.
Yeah. Yeah. To begin with, when I was starting reading the book, and I still have that tendency at the end, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, some of them are really hard time letting go. And in his, he mentions this in the book, but then in his autobiography, he touches on it more. Like when he talks about himself, he goes into a weird.
Is that at the end?
Third
Autobiography?
person autobiography is at the end.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, spilled my cacao. So when he talks about himself, it wasn't clear that he was talking about himself, because the way he wrote it was almost like a third person outlook. But in the autobiography, he talks about letting go. In the book, he mentions letting go of something for a full week or like 11 days. Do you remember that? He was
there was some I don't know what it was, some personal issue.
Personal issues, and in the autobiography, he talks about it was grief. I think it was like somebody died.
Okay.
And he was having a hard time coping with it. And he said it was 11 days.
Yeah, 11 days, round the clock.
Of just sitting there or functioning, trying to let go. And in the autobiography, it also mentions his near-death experience when he was a child.
Okay. No, I haven't read this.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, this all makes sense, right? And then the second near-death experience when he was an adult, and then basically he just reached that $700 to $1,000 or $1,000 1,000 range state.
Money on the mind.
Money on the mind, yeah. Sacks of money. And then he was just basically in that state of Buddha-like perfection.
Yeah.
Which when I was reading it, I just had tears rolling out down my eyes. So I don't know why I thought it would have been interesting to know that about him before I started reading the book. I don't know how it would have changed my opinion of him. But the person that recommended this book, the show, the Quantum Effects show that we watched, if that is what it's called, said that, he said that this David Hawkins like embodied all of these ancient teachings and like studied all of them and then basically summed up the process of personal enlightenment in this one book, which was, this letting go technique. And I was thinking to myself, that's an interesting way to observe it. And maybe that is true. But after I read the autobiography, it like became clear to me, yeah, he absorbed it in essence, not in teaching, not in spiritual seeking, but in essence of I.
Yeah.
And to me, that carries a lot more weight.
Yeah.
Than somebody reading a bajillion books
And regurgitating
it back
Right.
based on his personal interpretation of that. So
You're right. It's learning directly from Jesus versus learning from the Bible.
yeah, which
is,
even worse than that, learning directly from Jesus versus reading
the Wikipedia entry on the Bible.
Yeah, Wikipedia. Sure. Yeah, right. Because the Bible still might have some truth left in it, right? Vibratory wise, but there's there's this essence of not that I have problem with reading books because I'm literally talking about the book,
Right.
but when the book comes from someone's soul, and that someone's soul is
Right.
not a three-dimensional interpretation,
It harmonizes with you in a way that is different from a purely mental.
Yeah.
Coming from
scholastic. The scholastic or
sure.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Scholarly, like it's not a scholarly interpretation. Of
it's not
being. It is a spiritual interpretation.
It's trying to show you something instead of trying to teach you something.
Yeah,
maybe.
trying to make you feel something as opposed
Yeah.
to brushstroke discussing the
Yeah.
concepts. And so the book has that essence in it, right? And he makes some pretty big claims. He's like, this would change your life.
Yeah.
And to begin with, you're reading, you're like, well, how much can it possibly change my life? But it does.
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he lives up to his promise.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like my book. I think it's written from that space of truth.
Yeah.
Right. Like this letting go is just letting us go back to our truth. It's not doing anything. Like there's no goal here other than they're just going into
No,
you.
that's the thing is that, it's at various points he talks about, all those higher emotional states are inside of you. They're inside of everybody. They're just being restricted and held down and held back by the negatives.
Mm-hmm.
And so the trick, if you want to call it that, to enlightenment, if you want to call it that, is to stop yourself from stopping yourself.
Yeah.
Because you are holding, everyone is holding themselves back.
Mm-hmm. That tightness mm-hmm.
with negative emotion. You're holding yourself back in life, in your career, in your relationship, in love, with your children, with your health. All of these things are being suppressed
mm-hmm.
by these negative thoughts, negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, it's like, it's not revolutionary. Like letting go is
Right.
literally just that.
Right.
It's just we have.
And on one hand, what could be easier? On the other hand, but that cup, Bob.
No, but and he said this, and other people say this. We have just trained ourselves not to feel for 40, like in our case, for 40 years, right? Let's say
right.
35, whatever. But from if we got hurt as children, or like, and we couldn't process something,
Right.
which is what my book says. When you experience something and you don't have cognitive capacity to process, or you don't have mental capacity to even understand what's happening, you just simply deposit it to the side for later.
Yeah.
Which is what my book says, right? And so he basically kind of just says that he doesn't touch that, but that is what it is.
I think that's between this suppression and repression. I think that's exactly what it is.
But what I'm saying,
He does talk about that
we suppress that as children.
I don't know if he specifically says as children, but throughout our whole life,
a whole life.
that is the default state of humans, especially Western humans today. Is something bad happens, conceal, don't feel.
Yeah. Well, but I think it's the reason I'm saying the children part is because, to begin with, we do not have the emotional range to be able to understand or process.
Yeah.
When we're 1 or 2 or 3, we don't have that range.
Right.
And so it's almost like instinctively we go, I have no idea what the fuck this is. Let me just put it to the side.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, let me put it to the side. I don't want to deal with
that.
Yeah.
That's not nice.
Yeah, and so we inherently are being raised by our own selves as such, as like, let's not feel and process and then thus let go. Let's just put it to the side. Because to begin with, we don't have the capacity to do so.
Right.
But then when we have the capacity to do so, we have been, so used to this way of being that we don't go, wait, should I rethink of how I deal with emotions?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what would ever cause somebody to rethink that?
Yeah.
That's the default state. Everybody lives that way. Everybody's lived that way their entire life. Why would you?
Yeah.
Why would what would cause someone to go, all these uncomfortable things that I'm feeling? I want to dive into that. That's not an obvious thing to do.
No. And so until you realize that is something that should be done, and then, but thus realize what is it that you're actually doing day to day. This book is perfect at.
Yeah.
So I hope we did due diligence to it.
Well, 5 stars.
5 stars to the book, and sure 5 stars to our due diligence, but at least 3.5.
Please give us 5 stars.
Yeah. So highly recommend.
Yep.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.